Good morning, 10th of April, 2025, and we're returning to Madame B's scrapbook for inspiration. We're going to recreate her lattice portrait gallery, and it looks like it might be a daunting project, but it's really not. It just takes a little bit of time and patience. In Madame B's example, we have a row on the top that starts with 4 and ends with 4 on the bottom with 6 images in the middle. That's 5 rows, and that adds up to 24 images. I think that's a little much for me to take on as a demonstration, so let's cut it down a little bit and see what happens. We cut our image count down by almost half. We ended up with 14. If we have 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and 4 in the middle row, I think that's more manageable for this project, for this demonstration. And I think that if you were careful about it, you could actually repeat this image and get a double page spread that you could fold in half. Let's try it and see what happens. First, let's compare our cut down version on a single page spread. And you can see that I have added a strip of book page about 1/4 of an inch, and it will pretty much fit going down the left side. Now let's look at a 2-page spread where we have more of a diamond pattern shape, but we repeat it so we can fold the page in half without cutting any of the faces in half. And from a pragmatic standpoint, if I were going to make this, say, a cover of a folio or a signature, this is probably the way I would go. If I were to make it a center spread in the middle of a signature, I might go with the single grouping we saw first, which most resembles Madame B's portrait gallery. Now I use round because I have that 1.5-inch circle punch, but you could easily use square or rectangle or diamond or configure it any way you want to. Because I had the circle punch, it made it quick and easy for me because fussy cutting is not my forte. Of course, if you have, for example, a scan and cut, you can use your scan and cut to do diamonds or whatever shape you want to use. I have a heart-shaped punch, and I considered using the heart-shaped punch, but I decided that would make working the lattice work too complicated for this show. So now let's turn on the camera and figure out how to lay down both the images and the lattice. You can see here that I used a ruler to kind of lay things out, actually 2 rulers, actually 3 rulers, but let's not get hung up on favorite tools. So what my objective was is to add the 1.5-inch diameter of the circle to the width of 2 1/4-inch lattice strips. And that should give me the total area of each square where the lattice strips cross. And that should tell me, so it's 2 by 2, just in case you were wondering, that should tell me where to glue down these pictures so that I can um, then weave the lattice on top of them. That's the theory. And I'm just going to clue you in right now, since this is a prototype. If you're very good at hand-eye coordination, go for it. Otherwise, you need more help. And I'll explain that as we go. This is cream-colored cardstock, and there are very light color flecks in it, widely dispersed, not bunched up together. You can't see that at all on camera, and you might not even notice those color flecks up close, but they're there. And what I've done, as you can see, is take one of those strips and line it up right down the middle of 11 inches, which is 5.5 inches, and I place the 2 individuals on the top row and the 2 individuals on the bottom row roughly 1/4 inch apart, and then I missed the mark on the second row. The middle person is a little too far to the left, and I noticed that. So with this second to last row person, I tried a little harder to get them lined up right on the center mark. Now, I'm going to tell you this whole thing, and by the way, if you've been around at all on this channel, you know that I have pretty challenging vision problems, and I wear glasses. Well, here's where one of my vision problems comes in. All of this, um, like diagram of images and the strips that go in between to form the lattice work already is canting a little bit left. Plus, all those images have different focal points. So the boy in the second to the last row is the focal point. But for example, some of the other um, images have two people in them and a couple have more than two. So that was a visual challenge trying to get all those lined up so that my lattices weren't cutting off somebody's head. And so you can see that I didn't just slap them all down left to right, row on row. I kind of went up and down and worked out from the center to try and keep things centered. We can see that freehanding it, even with the extra guidance of uh, pacing our paper down, not pacing, but anchoring our paper on our grid map and using a couple rulers to figure out how to place things, you're still freehanding it. And my first inclination was to just draw some very light pencil lines that would represent the center of our 1/4 inch strips that make up our lattice work. And that way I would have, a rough diamond shape wherever they crossed, and I could glue my circles down and then just glue my lattice work, weaving it up and down in a basic basket weave and call it a day. Why didn't I do that? Well, sometimes this grandma just doesn't want to do things, the quote unquote right way. She wants to do them the quick way. So there's that. And of course, the next question is, how hard is it going to make it to line those lattice strips up if the pictures aren't centered? And the answer is, uh, you could let it drive you crazy, but I don't. I futz around a lot because I didn't just draw some lines and slap things down, Anyway, never mind. You could use grid paper to line things up, but you still have the issue of putting those pictures and lattice strips down and getting them straight and getting them centered if you are using grid paper and um, trying to eyeball it. So I guess what I'm saying here, based on my own embarrassing mess that I made, is don't eyeball it. Go the low and slow route and draw some lines and so on and so forth. All right, so as I'm futzing around trying to get these things to line up and, they're being bumped and whatnot and so forth, let's jump ahead to actually, once I get the lower right where my hand is, grid down, how I work from the lower right corner up to the top and get everything glued down. So, of course, the camera quit and the gluing is already done, but I'll talk you through it while I'm trimming off loose ends. Everywhere that you have a cross point of those lattice strips, not only do you have to glue it down to the base page where you've already glued your images, but you also have to glue the crossing lattice strip down. And since I did a basket weave, it means that every other junction is under, over, under, over. So this is not a beginner project per se, unless you're familiar with weaving and pretty good with hand-eye coordination. So good luck with it. I don't. I'm laughing at myself because I thought, oh, this can be such a cool, you know, thing to showcase from Madame B's uh, collection in her portrait gallery or portfolio or scrapbook, call it what you want. Uh, but boy, did I bite off more than I could chew in a continuous demonstration. And I didn't even consider, whether I was going to have visual difficulty, which clearly I did. Nevertheless, like I said in the very beginning, before I even finished this, to be able to talk about my experience making it, it's not impossible, but it will take some patience and some pre-planning to get this to look nice. I have the original here for you on the left and a black and white photocopy on the right just underneath it, so you can see that you can photocopy it, but my photocopier really didn't pick up the cream colored parts of that lattice. So the lattice, everything that runs from the upper left to the lower right is cream color strips, and everything that runs the opposite way from lower left to upper right are white. And I did that on purpose so that you would be able to see it and, not so much. Especially in the black and white, you can kind of see a little bit of a shadow line, but not as pronounced as you can see it when you look at it in person. Now, the reason I made that black and white photocopy is if we decide that we're going to use it either as a centerfold or as a feature for the cover of one of our full signatures, then it's better to fold it without all the glued down stuff, unless you put some kind of like matte medium or perish the thought Mod Podge over the original. And I think I'm going to keep the original as a masterboard. Here's ours, and here's Madam B's. I think we did a pretty good job for the first time out. You can see that her lattice work was much better than ours, but I think that maybe, and this is a big fat maybe gluing the lattice work together first and then putting it over your temporarily tacked down images might be a better way to go. If I ever try this again, we will try doing it that way and see if we get a better result. And for Sunday, our episode will probably be shorter than this one because I'll be showing you the longer version of that printing technique that I showed you, with the little glasses and the books and the ink spots and all that on top of various photocopy techniques to make a background for our tag in the ephemera episode previously. If you've ever done this before or something similar to it or worked with lattice work and you have some tips or techniques, please by all means share with the class in comments below. I hope that you enjoyed this. It certainly was different. God bless you. I'll see you real soon.